And we got some bad news, folks. We got to talk about it. Unfortunately, we got some injuries on the line on the defense, and they're headed to injured reserve. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Cardinals Daily. I'm Eddie Law. Hit that sub, hit that bell, send that like, and let's get right to it, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, a couple of our guys are headed to IR. Big news out of Arizona. The Cardinals have placed cornerback Garrett Williams and defensive lineman LJ Collier on injured reserve, meaning they're out for at least the next 4 games. Alongside that, they made a couple roster moves to compensate, or try to, signing cornerback Darren Hall from the practice squad to the active roster and adding cornerback, and I'm sorry, my guy, I'm going to butcher your name, Eddie Cuevas, and defensive lineman Zach Carter to the practice squad. These are not small moves, first of all. What this tells us is that Arizona's depth in the secondary is getting tested, perhaps more than they were ready for, right? So Williams was one of the top corners, and Collier was part of their defensive line rotation. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, if it's Collier or Collier, but I'm going to go with Collier because I like it better. But losing both for a stretch forces the coaching staff to reshuffle, right, and trust the backups a lot more than perhaps they'd even want to. So let's talk about the replacements real quick. Darren Hall, stepping up from the practice squad, who helps fill one of the corner spots immediately. He's got some experience, which is useful, but again, not the ideal guy you want in there actually having to take some snaps at corner. Eddie Cuevas, another corner signed to the practice squad, and Zach Carter, defensive lineman with some NFL experience, and starts in his history actually. So, he played with the Bengals and the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. Brings more body count to the mix. So, Carter 6'4", 301, played 45 games, 16 starts. He's not just a body; he brings experience. So, what are the implications? Matchups are going to get riskier here. Without Williams and Collier, the Cardinals defense will be more vulnerable to both the passing game, with the outside corners, of course, and the pass rush run defense if Collier snaps are missed. Opposing quarterbacks are likely to test those weaker links, especially on the outside with those speedy receivers. It's going to be a little scary on the outside without Garrett Williams to come in and spell Will Johnson, which again we haven't gotten a word yet if he's going to be out. Actually, no, he was put on IR, so he's out. So he's out. Max Melton, I believe, is out. Everybody's out. It's going to be, for all we know, Denzel Burke's going to start. And I don't mind that because he played hard. He played his ass off last game. But still, it's going to be a lot more pressure on the young guys. Rookies and backup corners will have to step up quickly. Same for the D-line rotation, although it's a little, we have a little more depth right there, I think. Depth was already thin for the most part. I think D-line's going to be okay. But this is going to definitely get expose any holes that we have in those two spots, specifically D-line and corner. Strategic adjustments are going to be needed. The defensive scheme is probably going to need to shift a little bit. More zone coverage, maybe more safety help. Especially with Buda Baker and Thompson. Fewer one-on-ones, a little more zone, of course. On pass rush, they could lean more on other linemen or blitzes to compensate or for Collier's absence. Again, he's not the end-all, be-all for the defensive line, but again, it really sucks not to have him in there. Fatigue, consistency, right? More reps to the backups means more exposure to mistakes, especially late in games. Also, defensive consistency is gonna suffer. Replacement players aren't used, to high pressure or high intensity roles. This is definitely gonna be mental test, physical test, but definitely a mental one for those backups. Physical, do they have the cardio to play as many snaps or more snaps than they used to? And mentally, can they handle the stress? And especially if they make a mistake or when they make a mistake, because they will, can they get past it, right? Like next play up, next play. It's going to be a real test for those young guys for sure. Look, the Cardinals may be 2-0 now, but the injuries highlight how fragile momentum can be. If they want to keep winning, especially against tougher teams ahead, they can't afford too many vulnerabilities on the roster. No more injuries, really. The next few weeks is going to be a test of not just skill. Coaching is going to be a big one. Looking at you, Drew Pedzing. Depth, adaptability. Can you adapt to the situation? Losing Williams and Collier stings, but how the Cardinals respond could define their season. So, yeah. And I guess we'll just ignore Stephon Gilmore right there, Monty. Come on, dog. I literally give you an easy lob. All right. Nothing's going to be listening to me, but still. All right, moving on. San Francisco's a little beat up, luckily for us, I guess. So it's going to be not same, but at least it's going to be somewhat even playing ground. The Niners opened up practice this week, looking less like a powerhouse and more like a mash unit, right? The 10 players, including 6 starters, showed up on the injury report on Wednesday. 8 of them didn't even practice. That's a big deal with the Cardinals coming to town on Sunday. Let's start with the biggest name, quarterback Brock Purdy. Missed last week's game against the Saints, giving way to Mac Jones, but he was only a limited participant on Wednesday, so with toe and shoulder issues. Kyle Shanahan didn't guarantee anything, but he did say Purdy has a chance to play. Huge storyline because of banged up Purdy or another week of Mac Jones changes how Arizona's defense will prepare. The injury bug didn't stop there. Starting left guard Ben Barch is officially headed to injured reserve after suffering a high ankle sprain against New Orleans. He only made it 10 snaps before going down, leaving rookie 7th rounder Connor Colby to play the other 61. Yeah, and that's a massive shift in protection for the Niners offense and something the Cardinals defensive line will definitely look to exploit. But, let's check the rest of the list, right? Nick Bosa got a rest day. Expected. Spencer Burford is out with a knee. Yuta Gross-Matos knee. Juan Jennings. Sorry, bud. I'm gonna go with Juan Jennings. Dealing with an ankle and shoulder issue. Kyle Alphabet concussion. Sarah Neal concussion. Trent Nee has a knee thing. But he gets better in rest days. So it's not. We don't really fully know how bad the knee is just yet. At least they didn't release it. Christian McCaffrey listed with the calf, but mainly he just needs rest. And still, that's a lot of key names that are either sidelined or managing pain in the middle of the week, just days before playing. At least lucky for them, they're at home. They don't have to travel anywhere. So what does this all mean? For us, for the Cardinals, it's an opportunity, right? This is not the full-strength 49ers team that usually dominates the line of scrimmage. The loss of Barch on the offensive line could open up some lanes for guys like Zaven Collins and Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell to get home. If Purdy isn't 100% or if Mac Jones has to go again, the defense can tee off a little more aggressive, pin the ears back and go get them, just like we did last game against Bryce Young and the Panthers. Now, at least it's very, at the start of the game and at the end. So, nobody should underestimate San Francisco, all right? Don't underestimate the Niners. They got depth. And Shanahan's system is built in, for the most part, for plug-and-play guys, right? But 10 players in the injury report, man, heading to the divisional matchup, that's significant. It's a big deal. If there ever was a time for the Cardinals to catch the Niners, this is it. So, Niners are banged up. Cardinals are 2-0. And suddenly, this Sunday feels less like David versus Goliath, in a way, and more like a real chance for Arizona to prove they belong at the top of the NFC West conversation. So we'll see what happens here. Headed over to Levi Stadium on Sunday. I'm not, but they are. And we're going to be watching nervous as hell, as usual. The disrespect. The disrespect, folks. I don't get it. It's kind of wild. We're underdogs for the first time this season. Cardinals are not the betting favorites in Week 3 coming into the Niners game. After opening the year 2-0, favorites against the Saints and the Panthers, we're Week 3. We're road underdogs when we head over to Levi Stadium against the Niners. Let's look at the numbers, right? According to BetMGM, Niners are sitting at minus 120 in the money line. The hell are you guys talking about? They don't even know if the quarterback's going to play. But while the Cardinals are at a plus 100, so I would, But that's about as close as it gets, really. But those odds suggest the Niners are just a 4.5% more likely to win than Arizona. In other words, Vegas sees this as a coin flip, and for good reason. Both teams are undefeated at 2-0, and the spread tells a similar story, right? San Fran's favored by just 1.5 points. If you bet Arizona to cover, they just need to win outright, tie or lose by a single point. Meanwhile, a bet on San Fran requires them to win by at least 2. And what's interesting is that the Cardinals are 1-1 against the spread so far. So they covered in Week 1 against New Orleans, but failed to cover last week. 6.5 point favorites versus Carolina, even though they won. So the Niners, on the other hand, 2-0, which means that they've handled business more cleanly. Then there's a total. Set, I think, at 43.5. So both teams hit under in Week 1 and the over in Week 2. So we've seen different game scripts already. The Cardinals grinding out a tough defensive win in New Orleans, then getting into a shootout with Carolina. That volatility makes the total one a little trickier to bet this week. So what does this all mean? Vegas and San Fran, is giving San Fran the edge, right? Home field, recent track record. They don't have to travel, and maybe just a little more trust in their ability to close out games. But the line being this tight also shows the Cardinals are getting some respect, right? But I don't feel like it's enough. A few months ago, Arizona would have been a heavy underdogs in this spot. Now odds makers are saying these teams aren't that far apart. Cardinals are going to come in as underdogs, but this is not a mismatch. It's a toss-up between two 2-0 teams. And if Arizona pulls it off, it won't just be a betting upset. It'll be the kind of statement that tells the league, hey, Cardinals are for real. Get it together. All right, hot take time. Whew. Cardinals fans, let's talk Marvin Harrison Jr. The rookie has the second year. Sorry, rookie. Yeah, looks like a rookie to me, but the second year wide receiver hasn't exactly blown up the stat sheet through 2 weeks. 11 targets, tied for 49th in the league. His draft counterpart, Malik Neighbors, is leading the NFL with 25. So that's created some chatter about whether Arizona is using Harrison enough or correctly. Here's my thoughts. That breakout is still coming. I'm hanging on to that, folks, and it's gonna start soon. Let me give you 3 bold predictions for Harrison's next month. I predict double-digit targets for San Francisco. This Sunday against the Niners will be Harrison's first game with 10 or more targets. Why? Game flow, right? Through weeks 1 and 2, Arizona led on 70% of the offensive snaps. So third highest in the league. They didn't have to throw, so Kyler Murray leaned on safe passes, right? The run game, little check downs, short passes, quick ones out the pocket, right? But against the Niners, that script's going to change. The Cardinals won't be sitting on a 24-point cushion. They'll need chunk plays to keep up. And Harrison is their best bet. So add in the fact that Trey McBride will draw attention over the middle, Harrison's going to see volume spike no matter how the Niners play him, I believe. So there you go. Second prediction. First 100-yard game before October ends. Look, by the end of the next 3 games, Harrison's going to get his first career 100-yard performance. I see it. Look, he's already showing flashes. Right, 71 yards and a touchdown in week 1 against the Saints despite double coverage. He's also drawing penalties that don't show up in the box score, including what the 38-yard DPI, defensive pass interference last week. Those are essentially hidden stats or hidden targets, I guess. Once Murray takes a couple more shots downfield, and he will as the games get tighter, Harrison's going to hit that 100-yard mark. He's too polished as a route runner, and he's too physically gifted not to. So I see it coming. Right, write it down. His first 100-yard game in the next month, or at least before the end of October. And then my third prediction, he's going to be considered a legitimate wide receiver 1 by week 6, right? Harrison Jr. is going to lead the Cardinals in the targets, I believe. Right now, Trey McBride's Kyler's safety blanket, and deservedly so, but Harrison's talent is undeniable. The more reps he gets, the more trust Murray is going to have to throw him in contested spots, which he has already been throwing it to him in contested spots. They're just not, the ball just hasn't been at the right spot. Right, or just Harrison just wasn't able to adjust. They're gonna get that together. Just need more and more reps. This is why I wish he would have played more in the preseason. But in the red zone, he's gonna get targeted. Jonathan Gannon has already said it. For this offense to be at its best, Harrison needs a football. That usage shift is coming, and once it does, he'll settle in as Arizona's true wide receiver 1. So the big picture here. Yes, right now Harrison's target share looks underwhelming compared to other rookies and pretty much anybody or other second-year receivers and rookies. Regardless, but that's about game flow and play calling. Drew Petzing, come on, dog, get it together. But the volume's gonna come, and when it does, watch out because this offense is gonna look completely different with a fully unleashed MHJ. The breakout is coming. Do not worry about 11 targets in 2 weeks. Worry about what happens when that number doubles over the next 2. The rest of the NFC West better be ready. Marvin Harrison Jr. coming your way like a freight train, baby. That's going to do it for this episode of Cardinals Daily. I'm Eddie Law. Don't forget to hit that sub, hit that bell, hit that like, leave a comment. Just a couple more days till game day. Well, at least travel day. It is Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. Or it is Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. I'm off by a day. But it is what it is. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Go Cardinals.